mean, there's a lot of amusement parks in China.
Yeah,
So do you know what else is there besides Shanghai?
not interesting.
I'm
I don't
sorry
like
about the
amusement
body.
Yeah.
Pretty American concept.
No, it's actually started in Copenhagen. Really? Gardens was the first amusement park.
Well, yeah, like the old style gardens sort of a thing, but like rides, right?
No,
No?
typically grabs there, right?
You know that feeling you just had from now? It's the same when a person tells me that they are not into video games.
Really?
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay, we understand, but like
understand.
it's a bummer, right?
Not
We
everybody
like,
likes the roller coaster.
not everybody likes video games, so yeah.
You do this already?
So before we had it,
That's awful.
pivoted the door inward. We still allowed people to open and close it. You removed it as well, the door? Why did you? You wrote remove bathroom door.
Well, in the background. Like
Oh, in the
that's-
bathroom. Oh, no, I actually did that this time. Yeah, you could have checked that off.
Yeah, so
I didn't delete it.
I'm sorry, Tom, so I got distracted. So yeah, we just want to figure it, I mean, before we close up today, we have to decide, figure out what's left to do before we're gonna call this thing done, and decide between now and you all disappear for the summer, what can you get done with the time that you have, right? And I also want to say that, and Mike, you can hear this hopefully. Our philosophy in our group is, we feel that you should prioritize your other classes, projects and papers and final exams before this work, because usually those other papers and things, you have set days where for us, well, sorry, Mike, I guess I'm gonna say here, but it's really on you. I actually don't have to submit any grades for you. Mike probably does, but we collectively feel that, you know, if you're busy with exams, say through May 12th, and the semester ends May 18th or 19th, and you want to finish your punch list during that week between May 12th and May 19th. As long as you give Mike enough time for him to get his grades in, you know, you don't wait for the last minute. That's fine with us. And that's kind of how that's kind of our ethos here in the lab.
Okay, my schedule is the last sprint report is due on the 5th. We have no more sprint reports, but we do have the final presentation.
Yeah.
And I think both of the teams you're working with are having that presentation the week after the 5th.
Mhm.
So that's pretty much the end of what the team would need to do.
Okay.
I will be sending out a questionnaire to the professors to get a little bit of input too. That'll moderate the final grade, but I will be handling most of the grades. So
Yeah.
I haven't been as stringent as the other professors have in terms of end of semester. So that's what happens when you get somebody who's new. So maybe next semester I'll be tougher.
Yeah, so, but again, we'll decide today what else needs to be done. We'll say, is this thing too big to handle? We got to table it to the fall, and we'll note that. Or this thing could be done in a half hour, who's going to do it? And you say, yeah, I'm going to do it, and you put it on the next sprint report that you're going to do it. And you could say on that sprint report, you know, I'm going to have this done before I leave for the summer. That's fine.
All right, so the main goal for our remaining time is the spring is to make sure that we have a functional, like, you know, not all the bells and whistles that we can think of are there, but a functional version of the game done for desktop. And we can leave it alone. Like, it doesn't need any further developments at the moment. That would allow us to come back to the fall and just focus on taking what we have and putting it into a headstone. So in order for us to be able to do this, we got to talk through because we identified a whole bunch of bugs in the expo. So let's talk through what we observed and this is fixed. And let's also take a look at the sprint report and the backlogs, for example, to see what's remaining from that. Then we have to make sure that we're all merged into a single file that's clean and done. Now I'm going to ask you to remind me, let's come back to that file merge issue before we finish up today, because when we talk through all these details, I'm going to forget about it. All right. Let's see. And actually, no, you had just like a pretty tidy section. Like there were two things that I see from the expo that you were working on. Can we talk about those, like the call neighbors functionality and having the power switch or the electricity switch go off?
Do you want me to show that or?
Sure. Yeah.
Along, how are you doing? Good.
Good.
How you couldn't walk over across the courtyard?
Yeah, some of
You were
us.
so worried
had
about this
presentation.
Yeah. I'm just kidding. Tiffany Craft.
But as far as
No.
like Tuesday, it's
Yeah.
the last.
Of the semester.
Yeah.
I'm
And then
assuming
the
this is all-
fall.
it's not
Did-
Sunday.
Yeah, it is. Did you know that like when we send him anything and he already answers?
Yeah, or-
So.
Yeah, I
All
know.
12,
What,
I know.
24 hours?
I know.
Cut him
Yeah,
from
I
there.
know.
It's not in the notes, like what day of the week it is.
It's on Friday.
Okay.
He and I had a fun outing. last
I'm not
Saturday.
sure that I got that in my calendar.
Oh, I was last night, there was I learning mode all the time. So,
So now should we circle back on this or?
Oh, yeah. Like.
Oh, okay, you're getting.
Go
it.
for
Okay.
Can I help somehow?
But you're into the Zoom.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would, yeah. So I put the off and on.
All right. And this object is interactable at the end of the game, but it's not interactable earlier in the game. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Didn't you mention that you changed that for some reason?
I didn't change that, but I think we can change it. I mean, it is also interactable for round one in the game.
I remember something odd about that, and it was something that made some sense. Why are we not making that interactable again in the first round?
It's supposed to be what you do last before you leave, like you're designed to fail round one, right?
Yeah, I think what she mentioned and other students as well is like people in their Saturday test were already waiting to
Oh, they wanted to play
ship the
with it.
sale in round one,
Okay,
so they were waiting.
okay,
Was that the case now?
Yeah.
For
the 3
minutes.
Yeah, so
okay,
I don't see why not.
all right. I mean, I guess it does, what I like about somebody flipping the switch while they're experimenting is that, well, it makes everything dark, right? And it, like it dims the screen, there is an impact.
Okay, this is great of him. So what we could do now, instead of flipping the switch in round one and having the prompt, should I call my neighbors? Or maybe it can even have should I call my, but like it shouldn't. Wait, what?
Like if they experiment with flipping the switch sooner than they should, then things get dark. It makes their task harder, and they'll be like, oh, wait, let me flip that back on. And it sort of helps reinforce the idea of, no, do this last. This is the last thing you do. Don't do this, you know, in the middle of your getting items together. Right?
Right.
Right now, when you flip the switch, it ends the game too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Oh.
thinking here. So, and at the same time, let's keep it controlled. We don't want to.
Okay.
It's already like that is our baseline. That's what how we see how prepared they are. So if we give them a possible distraction, we are undermining our old plan, I guess.
Okay.
So forget about that.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And in the interest of, you know, putting
Yeah.
things to bed
Yeah.
quickly, just
Yeah.
keep it simple.
Yeah.
All right. All right. And then you want to show us the call neighbors functionality as well?
Yeah, if you only want to see the call over, I can just like go to the ROM too. I think I can make the collaborate interactable. Uh,
Okay, so to get to the call neighbors thing, I first have to hit the power switch, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
And just for the sake of the meeting notes, what are we trying to revise here with the call neighbors functionality?
I just want to see it.
So I'll put the blockade in the car and it'll come like this.
Okay.
And I think you can trigger this pretty far away from whatever, but I can change this.
No, that's
I
right.
want to limit the distance. So you can turn on then it will get this.
Ooh, shouldn't the thought balloon be above the two choices?
Yeah.
All right.
So I just.
All right. So now did you catch that? We want to put the thought balloon above the choices.
So move the buttons down.
Oh, okay. No. Okay, I can do that.
Tommy, got that?
I just put it in the notes.
Okay.
Okay. And then you said it also bumps up the score if they choose to do so, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
It's just, yeah, so we'll just. 2020.
Cool. All right. Cool. So looks like there's one edit to make, but otherwise, seems like you're pretty much done. So I'm going to suggest that you be the person who gets to say, okay, let me make sure that everybody else's stuff is getting merged into one file and then give it a playthrough. Like
Okay.
test everything, break everything, because if all the fixes that we intended to make are there, right? But otherwise, we either have to fix it with the remaining time we have, or else document it and be like, well, this needs to get done. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Junior. So, Papa, can we check out your stuff next?
Yeah. So with this, I'm able to like right now, the first item is highlighted and the same item with the particles above it, and I pick it up, then it moves to the next item. And then I can pick this up too, then moves to this, and I can pick it up. But when I walk into a different room, it still has the same like global next item, and it's not like restricted to the location they're in. So like right now, it essentially just like mimics wherever the particles are going to be. So like the next item is emergency contacts and has the particles above it, and I pick it up, and then the jug of water. But like if I'm in here, it's still like on the jug of water. And I reduce the I increase the transparency of the highlight.
Yeah, which is better. It's
Yeah.
still, because it's on top of, like the highlighting layers on top of it, it makes the font actually change, or not the font, the color of the text change a little bit. Just try putting the highlight behind it, the list, it'll let it stay brown, but otherwise it'll bit pop.
Yeah. But I feel like trying to figure out how I should add the restriction of the rooms
Mhm.
and resetting which part of the checklist has the highlight, but then I just haven't been able to like figure it out, like thinking about it theoretically before like implementing it in the code.
So.
So right now, it just like matches wherever the particles are going to be,
Mhm.
and it directs.
Okay.
Junior, that's a C sharp. So this is right now, it's a C sharp script that's doing like this, right?
And there was also like some changes within Unity that connected to it.
So I'm not a programmer, full disclosure, but it seems to me within the program itself, you know, you want to set some kind of, if this happens, then this happens, right? If you're in the, if you're in a room, you leave the room. So let's say you're in the kitchen, right? Now, again, I don't know what do you want to pull up
Yeah,
the
sure.
code? Let's take a quick look at the code and just kind of walk us through what they have. This is the type of thing if we're all looking at this, we might be able to troubleshoot this.
Are you trying to get to the point where you highlight the particles?
Move into the next room. That's the issue.
But that's his
Oh,
ultimate goal. He's trying to get there.
wait, you want the particles to also move? I thought it was just like the highlights changes based on what room you're in.
No, we wanted the glowing system to move according to the room. Because the original problem was we are in the living room. Let's say that the first item of the checklist is map, and the map is in the bedroom. So nobody's seeing anything glowing in the living room. So we wanted this system to get to the point where if you are in the living room, the glowing particles is going to be in the first item of the checklist in the living room. Then Brandon developed the mini map. And then say, oh, this is going to be helpful for Papa to do that, right? So
whatever room I'm standing in, the first unpicked up item is highlighted and the particles are on the.
from what I saw here now, Papa, it seems you are very close to it because the code is feeling that if you checked one item, the highlight goes to the next to the other one. I think you just have to add that check for the room that Dr. Buzzing was talking about.
Yeah.
So how I had done the check for the room previously, where all the items within a specific room are highlighted is. So basically, there's these invisible colliders Brandon created. So between each doorway, there's an invisible collider. And so once you walk past that collider from like, let's see, the bathroom to the living room, it switches the like game object like tag and it changes that to living room. So like if you walk from the living room to the garage, once on that collision, it switches to garage.
Okay.
So what I was doing was on the trigger, if it's living room, like when a user enters the living room from any of the other doors, I set all the living room items to be true. And then I set every other items to be false. So the first three items is the copy of ID, the extra keys, and then the eyeglasses. And these are, so I basically just commented out where each different item starts based on like the thing. So
Okay.
if it's the bedroom, then I set everything to be false except for the bedroom items. And then if it's the bathroom, everything is false except for the bathroom items.
Yeah.
And if it's the garage, everything is false except for the garage items. And so that's how I was doing for like on every collision, it runs this code. On every collision with the invisible colliders, it runs this code. But with like the updates, this is called once per frame, so like a lot more frequently. And over here, I said that yeah, I made a loop through like all the number of objects and said that if an item is if a check at each index, I loop for each index. So it starts from like the first item, so copy of ID. If the copy of ID checkbox is active, which means check, then it should no longer be highlighted. So since I have the corresponding and this is matching, I just do checklist at position of index should be set to false. So and that's how the highlight turns off. And then this code was already existing. And basically this over here is the code for the particles, and this is what makes this is what makes the particles show up on the highest item on the list that is yet to be picked up. So first you set the particles at whatever desired index to be true. And then so this is a line I added to like match that. And then over here, you go through, it went through a loop where if it was
It's controlling the check, the green checks.
Yeah. Check. Yeah.
So over here, I did I made this check this highlights. I set it to be true. And the way the code of the invisible collider works, once you set one to be true, you have to set everything else to be false for it to like properly work. And so over here, I went through, after I set this to be true, I went through a loop, and then I said if the index is not equal to this index minus one, which is actually the same index, but for some reason the particle index started at one, and then this index started at 0 for the array. So like when I tested it, I realized that like, for example, in the beginning of the game, the second item was highlighted. So that's why I added this number -1 to like offset it. And then, so I said, if the index is not, if I, which is this new like pointer, is not equal to the desired index over here, that is where the location of the yellow particles are. It makes it false. So it turns everything off, all the other highlights off. So that was like my train of thought when I was doing this.
That was a great run through the code. I was able to follow that, even though I'm also not a programmer. What I wonder is like, what about the three of you, especially you, lead programmer, you know, like, how can you jump in and help Papa reach this process thinking? Because Papa, can you show us the beginning, the part that is all commented out? I think that is also, this is also feasible, like for us to do a looping.
Yeah, that's what I
Because-
was sort of thinking.
And then there's lots of loops involved, but I think there should add one more looping check for the room.
The room.
And then if you are in such room, which has 4 or 5 possibilities, you start the loop. And then the loop checks for items that were already checked in that room. If it's already checked, go to the next one. If it's already checked, go to the next one. If it's not checked, highlight and put the glowing particle on that object. So I think that's the final strike.
I think that yeah, because you'd have to code, so when you enter, if you go from one room to the next, then you're making a loop based on you've entered just
Whichever room you entered,
check
should
room you
make all
entered,
the others falses, right?
all the others become false, and then the particles start with whatever's the top one in that
In
room,
that room,
in
yeah.
that room.
Okay, so
Do y'all have any other thoughts? You're the CNC experts.
Yeah, well, like I'm just trying to think this through as well, like, so. The way I'm thinking of it is you have 5 different for loops for this, I think there's 5 different loops, right? So, you only like, I don't know, I'm still like halfway through my stuff. Like you, well, each different loop will iterate through a certain like index, like the first
Mhm.
loop will iterate through like 0 through 3 or whatever. They're
or
all-
like based on the room size,
Right, right.
the number of items in the room size.
Like, you know how you separated them with the comments, like you have loops that iterate from like 1 to 4 and then like 5 to 8 whatever. And then. I guess like in the loop, you'd say like. It'd probably be a while loop. And you just have to check.
While you are, oh, this is a great idea. While you are in, oh, no. Because if the collider was an entire room and you were inside that collider, you could do that.
No, yeah, not for the collider, for like the picking up the items thing.
Mhm.
Like. You have to check, it's like, I guess you start from the lowest index, right? In whatever loop you're in, and then like while that one is,
Highlighted.
yeah, while it is not checked. Well, like the lowest index is not checked, it should be highlighted in the particles. And then if it's checked, then it goes to the next one.
Yeah.
Um,
Another thing that when Brandon was talking that it triggered here, in order to make the code more accessible and understandable for all of us, including, instead of using the I notation for all the indices, why don't you put the first letter of the room or whatever? For example, K for kitchen. So when you do the K, the loop structured syntax, instead of using I, you put the K, so that will remind anyone who is reading that that is the loop for the kitchen objects, I guess, if that makes sense.
So what happens if you're in a room? If you walk into a room that already has everything picked up, is there anything highlighted or like this part?
Not right now, because right now after you what is this? After you pick an item up, like right now I'm in the living room, but there's nothing highlighted. After you pick an item up, the highlights should disappear.
Right, so
Like completely.
so like, if you walked into the bedroom,
This should,
nothing highlight, it should be nothing highlighted? Like,
yeah.
okay,
But right now this just follows whoever the particles will be.
right,
And right now the particles are still in like the same phase they were in at the beginning, like how like it goes through the list. But that needs to be changed now. So like I walk into any room, there's nothing except for the multi-tool here in the garage.
So this seems to be in a final stretch. If you all put your heads to work together, this is gonna be a piece of cake.
All right, helpful discussion.
Unless are you fighting among yourselves and we are not aware? Aye, this is not nice. Thank you.
Good. So I guess the question is, Papa, you think you might be, you think this is doable before you disappear for the summer?
Yeah, that's all. I wanted to finish it before today, actually, but
All right.
like it was just like
Perfect.
however I was thinking. Like when I was trying different things, this wouldn't work. So
You're very close.
Yeah,
Because the highlights already jumping from
Yeah.
off to the other.
And sometimes it's helpful, like, and that's what we have these sessions, so we just kind of look at the code, brainstorm a bit, think outside the box. It's nice to have different perspectives and different ideas.
One more perspective from a control standpoint. We talked about triggers and a lot of that code is commented out. But I heard you talking about triggers and collisions and potentially some issues there. One thing we've always looked at in control is what type of trigger is it? Is it an edge trigger or is it a level trigger? An edge trigger occurs when you change state, which would be we're going from one room to the other. A level trigger would always be active whenever you're in the other room or that alternate state is still reading the same. And sometimes that leads to complex looping when you don't expect it, or you don't trigger enough depending on what the situation is. I don't know if we're having any of those issues, but I just thought I'd bring it up because We had talked about collisions and triggers and so on.
Yeah, that makes sense. It seems that we need to make the choice between one or the other, the hinge, collision, or the level, to make sure that whichever is simpler and less complicated for the programmer to implement.
Papa, can you scroll down to where the particles is called?
Okay, sure. So the particles, that's right here.
So particles at index.
Mhm.
And is particles are just a list of the objects?
I think so. Like, I think it also has a reference in here, like how I have the checklist highlights, but I think it might be an array list of. Let me show you. Like, how do I see that? Yeah, I think it should be something like this.
Yeah, go back to the,
Cool.
like, where's particles called, like, created in the code? Yeah, go to the first one.
Yeah.
So it's a public list, game object particles. Okay, and you go back to that code. I'm thinking is maybe, you see how you're doing the particles at I or at index?
Mhm.
Is that the same as gonna be for your list, your, like in the commented out code, whenever you set the flags to false and true?
So particles at I corresponds directly to the list I had commented out. But particles at index, for some reason, started from 1 instead of 0. Like,
Okay,
Text is defined at the top as one.
yeah.
oh, checklist highlight. is
Why is
wherever
it
it is.
defined as one?
Particles show up on the highest item on the list. That's not, and grab together. This is not controlled.
This is control.
Starting at one because the container particles are indexed zero.
For offset of particles.
Sorry.
There's a comment here that says why it starts at one.
It's because the container particles are zero.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
What
So
container?
shouldn't the, how come you had to do index -1 for the highlight? The flood kit particles.
Oh, okay.
That always wants to be sparkling for that,
Mhm.
so. It starts as at one.
Mhm.
And then just so I understand, you want all the particles to go off in a room for every object, or still in order just by room?
In order by room.
In order by room,
So once you walk into a room, the first item that has not been picked up already.
you'll sparkle.
Yeah, and have the highlights on the checklist.
Oh, okay, so that's why there's checklist highlight, and then there,
Yeah.
wait,
So
checklist highlight.
that's the array of highlights right here. So like each item in the thing has its own highlight like object, and it's in the array checklist highlights. So element 0 is a copy of ID, 1 is extra keys, 2 is eyeglasses. These first three are in the living room.
So that's the highlight. Where's the particles?
The particles, I haven't seen it like actually in the game. I haven't seen it in Unity, but
Can you go back to the inspector, please? Because it might be closed. Particles, open there, it's closed the array.
yeah. So 0 is container particles, then ID particles. Yeah, it's pretty much very similar to this. Just that it has the container particles in the first element.
I'm just, can you go back to the code? So you see the whole if statement, if building kit.
If building, yeah.
So what I'm thinking is you can literally take that whole if statement, put it in each if branch of the commented out code. So like a copy of each one. You know what I mean, for like living room and then so you have each loop, and then all you have to change is the indexes, like. Right, it's int I equals 0 to kit objects that count, but like for the first one, it would be 0 to like 4 or something for like the first 4 objects. And that way the system is like separated into sublists. So it works the way it would now, but just like in different rooms.
Okay. And then it wouldn't be in the updates, it would be in on the trigger. So it happen every time it player moves into a room.
Oh, it is an update now.
Cause like that would mean that I think that would mean that like if we check off an item and we don't move into a different room, there'll be nothing highlighted.
Okay, maybe then, I didn't realize it was an update. I guess you have to implement all 5 in the update function, and then instead for the collisions, you have like a value of what room they're in, like you can say like a string. So if you go in living room, room equals living room,
Mhm.
and then you have an if statement in the update, it'll be under building kit, it'll be if building kit, if in living room, or if room equals living room, then you only do the loop for the index in the living room, and then if in bathroom, it's the same thing. So
And I could bring the colliders like within the update.
you basically make the colliders just set a value.
Oh, okay,
set
to a global variable that's like through that's not within the scope of the trigger.
Yeah, you just make a new global variable.
Mhm. That makes sense.
All right, so how confident are you feeling now, Papa? From 0 to 10?
Like a 7.5.
But so good. And keep in mind that, you know, this kind of let's talk through some code. It's an important asset, right? Like whether it's with Junior or other folks. Do you guys have a way to easily, like, I mean, this is all on your machine, but is there an easy way to share actual code across so that folks could look at it together over Zoom? Or yeah.
We can use live share. It's like an extension of VS Code.
Okay.
And then we could like just like do a Zoom and look at it like
Or use the Google Chat or whatever that is that Junior set up.
oh,
Oh, no, that is
that's
bad.
good.
No, okay.
Because that's just for text. What he's saying is it's an extension of VS Code, so it would still keep the coloring
Yes, right.
and stuff of the IDE.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, but that's important for us.
What maybe, I don't know, like not in real time perhaps, but if there is a code that is super problematic, the group, whether it's this one or another one, can temporarily move that code to Git and GitHub, whatever, because then you can see the changes. I don't know.
The live share thing is kind of like, it kind of like turns into Google Doc, you know, like all the
Yeah.
text.
Like you can make changes in real time.
Oh, that's great then. So
Only thing is I think you're limited to scrolling, whoever the master scrolls. Yeah.
Okay. So Brandon, can you talk us through?
Thank you.
There are a
Thank
bunch
you.
of things that we caught, correct, at the expo that are sort of in your various buckets.
I own,
Or no, that's right, just 2 things. What am I saying?
Yeah.
Exit button, mini map.
pretty much.
Okay, all right.
So I can share the credits. So I put the back button in the top left here. That's just what it looks like right now. But so the credit option makes the buttons display in the back and the back button makes the back. I also like, I remember at some point in time, like they talked about spacing, so I did spaces in between the paragraphs for the credits so that it's a little more readable.
I have 2 questions about the back button. Are there any other places in the game where we have a back button?
Yes, in the options.
Okay, all right. And are we being consistent in the placement? It's in the top left both times?
It's not. So I didn't put it in the middle because it's kind of in the way of all the text when you scroll. Like it's here in the options, and then this is like, it's like a floating button, so it doesn't move when you scroll.
Okay.
So, but I figured that was the most out of the way place.
I like that.
Okay, all right. So we generally always want to be consistent, but in this case, there's a good reason to do what you did. All right, the other thing is the color. Like the font currently just blends in too much, you know, like for it's consistent, but on the other hand, it doesn't, you know, when you look at it, you don't realize that it behaves differently until you start scrolling. So like I noticed that when you hover, right, it gets a blue tint. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a little funky sometimes. It doesn't. It's gonna get enough. it's a life, it can be
Yeah.
changed then.
But so I'm just thinking that we need like something to help, even when you're not moused over, something to let people know that this is not the same as this other text.
Okay.
And
Oh, I
then I
see.
do like the
Yes.
mouse over behavior, but you know, like. We need some kind of like cue in the noun moused over state and then another cue in the moused over state.
What about we use NAS original design for the buttons in the main menu? And then random just transfers to the private page and also the option menu.
Yeah, I can give it like a background and then
Yeah.
make it that color.
That's-
That's a good thing. I like.
It's already there. so
Yeah,
just
yeah.
copy and paste.
Okay, so restyle.
Or if it was an X button, would it still have to be consistent with where the back buttons are placed?
That's a great question. No, but since he showed us first the back button as the element that returns, that's why it triggered Dr. Hammond's instructional designer like, oh, consistency. But then just like if the case was an X button, it usually would be expected to be on the top right corner, because that's how most of us are familiar in design, right? So that question was very nice. The challenge for this credits page is that, oh, wait. This is kind of what I was going to say. I don't know if you're doing that. Instead of making the credits page stretched full screen, you can constrain that to be just like,
So it's not like that. It's just the way the aspect is when you build.
I mean, that should be part of the solution, because if you do this as a design choice, you will never have text rolling
I see.
on top, and then the back button can be here, just like Papa was suggesting. Because the choice that you made to put the back button here was because the text rolled on top of everything, right? So if you do this intentionally, like you constrain the panel to be this size, you can put the back button here.
So make it like a window kind of thing that helps.
The only difference that you go is to the parent that has the background here. Why is that?
Sorry, what did I do?
The credits panel. Look there, first you see. Currently, credits panel, please.
Oh, you want to put it?
Okay, so this is controlled by the canvas, blah, blah, blah. Oh, scroll view, I'm sorry, yeah, you're right. And you see that the scroll view is stretching the UI. So it's stretching to the entire size of the canvas. You don't want to do that. You'd like to set the boundaries for where this object is going to be at.
All right, so you've got the idea.
Yeah.
You don't have to mess with it at the moment. Can we take a look at the mini map?
Oh, I can't really. I can show you the code for it popping up. So I wanted to show you like it popping up. Okay. So. Right now, one thing that still needs to be done is the scene. This is one of the issues we found during the expo was the scene name that we remade. Like we remade it into spring 2023. It caused some issues with like transitioning from round to round. I didn't want to change it yet because Papa was still working this, and I didn't want to like have conflicts, but that's something we do like last. We just changed it back to how scene one.
All right, so none. Can I make that part of your cleanup tasks, like make sure the scene names link together, don't create conflicts? Okay.
Well, you should know because if she does a playthrough and it doesn't go, then that's why. So,
All right.
But the mini map.
Thank you.
What was the change in the mini map that was requested?
It was it didn't pop up for round two or for build what kit.
Okay,
Where's the fuck kit?
There should be an assets then game.
Wanna say it? Yeah, so right here. No, I can't see it. Oh, you cannot see it.
I think they are sharing only
Yeah, yeah.
in the display.
Um,
Thank goodness you're sitting next to him. Correct.
Thank you. So I just had this little extra thing that it checks again if the player preferences of the minimap is one, because if it is, then it should be. If they disable the minimap, then it won't turn back on. I just had to add this extra one. That's pretty much all it was.
Okay.
So
Out of curiosity, why do we keep using 0 and 1 for off on, as opposed to enabled Y versus enabled N?
well, Y and N.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of just like I feel like it's a pretty standard thing to do, especially
Science, binary stuff.
I know
Zero
that
and one.
there was a good reason for doing it in the 1960s.
Wait.
We just keep doing it, but I'm just curious, like,
That's not the correct answer. If that was a test, you would have failed. That's the type of variable. Dr. Hamilton.
I know it's an integer, but
What
like,
is-
are we ever actually doing math with it?
Like, when Brandon, he set the mini map enabled as a integer, so it's either a number, it's one of, because we start the number with 0.
Oh, look,
We kind of, 0 is false, it's the absence of the condition, and 1, it's true. It's the
Yeah.
presence of that condition, right? But if you want to have Y and N, it's just instead of like get int or set int, we would say get string and set string for the player preference.
It's also it's Boolean algebra, so then one is equal to response in Boolean algebra. So that's what we learned.
Yes, that's the correct answer. That's good. When we do intro to programming logic, they drill our brains to get used to
Then you could also point
true or
out that,
false or whatever.
that Y and N are language constrained, so.
Well, it's really in Booleans, if there's no bits, it's false. And then if there are bits, it's true. So
Right.
0 has no bits, so it's false. And then anything else is considered true. So if you're
Any value larger than 0.
yeah, so if you were to compare like a Boolean to an int, you can compare like 1 to true. And that'll always be true.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right. So, look. Oh, wait, so sorry, Brandon, the mini map is good. Works. Okay. All right, great. Okay, so Luke, what was in your bucket from something with the,
I can go through it.
yeah,
I deleted the doors. We have no more doors in our game.
okay.
That's the first thing. The second thing, I changed
That's
every
the first thing I do in my house when I move in.
The second thing I did was any interaction where you left click, you can now right click and or middle click. So like if people were trying to pick stuff up with the right click, they can now pick it up with the left click. If people were trying to put stuff in the car with the right click, they can still do it with the right click, the left click, and the middle mouse click. So all those should be valid.
So any click will do what you were
Cause
hoping
an action.
it would do. Okay, all right. And then,
And then the last thing was, is readable for some texture meshes. Junior helped me figure out how to fix them. And so now all the items I should highlight will highlight.
what about like picking up the glasses, dropping objects in the garage?
So we increased the collision box for the car,
Mhm.
and I think Junior moved the bicycle and the build kit so that they couldn't get behind the car.
Mhm.
So
I didn't check anything. I don't remember. Did I check anything that day?
I don't know, I could do it. It's like
I don't think you
super
did.
simple.
Yeah, I remember I was playing, then I put the one bike like leaning over the canoe. whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Or I guess I can do that now, but it's just, we're gonna increase the height of the collision box of the car.
Mhm.
And we're gonna make it so you can't walk around the back, so your glasses should fall there. So if they were to drop anything onto the car, it would just go to their feet where they can pick them up.
So you still do that, so we can put in the to-do list, right?
Yeah, I could do that,
All right.
like right now. But
It's more fun if we put it.
yeah, we can put it in to do this. And then the thing with the glasses, I think that's a PC specific thing where we need to go, whenever we build it on the PC, we need to delete and then re-import the models. Because I think that's the fix that Brandon said, because on our machines, because we're all Mac, it works perfectly fine. So it's not really a bug that we can duplicate until we want to run it, and we just re-import.
Okay, all right. So what I'm gonna do, can you get your hands, well, yeah, you can come up here. Are there other PCs you have available with it?
I don't know, I guess I can come up there.
Okay, all right.
It just depends on the computer we're building it, as far as we know, as of right now. It depends on the computer where we build it. Is where we have to read it.
Are you the one trying to open it? Ken,
Oh, yeah, well, it's something.
just put on the table and do it already. It's less.
Sorry.
It's more fun
I'm,
behind this back.
I'm thinking at the same time, I'm thinking about the first situation.
Because the mystery is like, I have noise triggers because of my ADHD. So if it's hidden, I get it. What is that? But if it's not, like my brain, whatever.
Good to know.
That's true. I'm not inventing that.
All right.
Thank you for understanding.
Someday you have to meet my doctoral advisor.
Well, but yeah, I was just thinking like, I remember like the day before the expo, we had like multiple different issues building. So, only one of them was the first one. But I also had issues like building it on my computer for a similar issue. Where like on that computer, it couldn't find the first prefab, but on my computer, it couldn't find the tree prefab. Or something, so it wouldn't let me build it. And then one time we got it built, but then it would like just crash. For some reason, like right as it starts. You remember that? We had a build working and it just crashed. I think it's because it was missing a transition. Remember we had to add an app to it? It wasn't transitioning because the name was wrong, and then we fixed that, and then it started crashing. I don't know why.
So we have a crash issue that we don't understand.
Potentially, we still have. one.
And it's true on PCs, true on Macs, true on both.
Definitely turn PC for sure.
Okay.
Untested on Mac.
Did you know that when you build, there is a build log that is printed in a txt file? And when you get that message in the console window, oh, build completed successfully in such many seconds, you can request to download the build log and you can see exactly right before where the crash happened, what triggered the crash.
I did not know that, but
Yeah, so that's
Okay.
the purpose of being here with us. We are learning
So
as
can
we do.
we put somebody on trying to figure out this crash? Like, it would be really cool to have that sorted before we put this to bed.
Can you remind me where is the log?
Yes, I have the Unity open here, so I'm gonna share the screen so it's registered in the video.
it seems that we need to get the final build, and then after we get the final build from we can diagnose this problem.
So, you know, when you finish building, the console prints like, oh, build completed successfully, la la la. You can click here, these three buttons, this icon here. And then you can download or request the edit. I don't remember where it's here somewhere. And then you can download the txt file.
Of what? What is it called?
Build
log?
build report, something like that. I can check over here. I have done that for IVR1, so I can find the name and I'll put in the documents for us.
Or is it just somewhere in the Unity folders, right? And writes it to a TXT file. So there's probably a folder somewhere that you can just look at and be like, yep, that TXT file that was generated right now is what I'm
Is
looking
it
for.
auto generated?
No, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, I can confirm that.
okay then. All right. But so again, like loop back with Junior for more guidance on this if you can't figure out how
Build
to wrangle
report.
build reports.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. All right.
So let me just share this real quick. So it's very quick, just to show what this thing looks like for everybody to see. Optimization.
what you can also do.
So that was done two. All right, this text I copied from the file that I got from Unity, and I was able to see that the game was super heavy, but then once you complete the build, you see everything that happened one by one, and then you can, you know, fix any issue that you have. So it's build report. In this case, I was doing a build for WebGL manual because I didn't ask Unity to do it on the cloud. And I did it by clicking the build and run button. Because that also may create other things. All right.
All right. So is that everything? No, let's take a look at the backlog now. Is there anything from the backlog that we can pick up?
All that stuff is for our class, fix bug with first, but that's the PC specific.
Okay.
Going back to that issue, I would highly recommend that they make sure that everything is working, and instead of building for Mac, send the like smoke signal for us to build here.
Yeah.
It's going to be less problematic. Unfortunately, Unity doesn't prioritize Mac as the standard platform. For example, WebGL builds like doesn't work in Safari at all. Safari is the least compatible browser. So let's just, you can continue doing everything normally, and then once you push to the cloud, I will pull here, download all the changes, and I'll request the build should be done here to see if the magic first is still going to happen or not. It's easier, it's less work for you all.
All right. So does everybody see the meeting notes, and you see like the green highlighted lists? So you can enjoy it. All right.
And these look doable to finish up for the semester?
Well, some of them are a little bit more wrangly. So for example, Papa's got to like do some coding and testing. So as long as people are ready to chip in, you know, if somebody's getting stuck on something, or Brandon, like that crash issue, you know, might take some time. Because the goal is that, like what, by next Tuesday, if we can pass it off and be like, okay, Nah and Luke are going to do their testing and try to break it, and let's, you know, see if everything works the way we intend for it to work, then we'd be in good shape, right? Oh wait, I have a question now. Now that I'm thinking about two different operating systems, do there need to be two different build files? No, exactly. Okay.
No.
All right.
Just the PC one.
Okay. And just, I want to first off commend everybody on keeping a pretty clean shop. That's this audit file I've just shared from IBR2, and it's got 21 pages, and it took like somebody who's very detailed and thorough, like, you know, thank God that group has somebody in there who can do this work. But, you know, she, over the course of multiple sessions, was going through like all of the things, interacting with them, documenting, you know, here's the errors that we're encountering. And then we had like go through and like parcel out. Now, admittedly, IBR2 is a bigger project. It's been around longer. And so there's been more time for like just sort of unaddressed sludge to build up. But it's like, man, that was a ton of work to make that happen. Versus if this is all correct, you know, like if we can just sort of punch out these items here in IBR3, that's pretty clean if this works. So it seems like y'all did a very good job of monitoring the backlog, working with the Trello board, and just getting stuff done pretty quickly. What I would suggest is, you know, a useful level up is find out ways to kind of support each other and do more of that, like thinking thinking together when somebody encounters an issue that's kind of like got you stumped. That's a pretty powerful skill set to have. That everybody understands their code except for the blind spots when you're like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. Okay, but to be able to understand somebody else's code and to easily engage with that, not everybody can do it. So both the just interaction, but also the tools, right? Because you have a tool in mind that would let you share it, see the colors, right? That's great. Okay. So what else do we need to do in terms of wrapping up?
Self-advertisement. Look, advertise for the meetings with me because he had that huge problem with the can soup. And it was like a 20-minute problem and we solved in 10 because we sit down together. If you have anything, just click the button and come meet me online. It's gonna be very fast, right?
Yes, to remind you, pausing the video for Brandon.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, he sent a message there.
Oh, I didn't see that you said. I
Oh,
just knew
but
wanted
thank
to
you,
bring it
thank
up.
you. Yeah, thank you. So he was faster than you. So anyways, you all are great.
All right, and just to double check, is everything going to be cool with getting everybody's different changes and everything merged into one file? Check that all the scene names conform.
Sure.
Because I think right at the start of the semester, we had a lot of stuff that was like on individual computers and it wasn't being merged in together. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. But we're good with it now. I think. All right. So is that it? Do we just say like, have a great summer, be cool?
So we're gonna see them next week for their presentation.
Yeah, but in terms of
Is that
like
next
this meeting.
Yeah, it's in here.
I think you have to send out a calendar.
Oh, it is next week.
Wow. When is that? Friday?
It's Thursday. That's crazy.
Thursday at 2:30. All right. So if you could be all done by then, awesome. But if not, when do we want to have the final pass off? Like, do we have a spot in mind for like, this is the project file for IVR3 end of spring? We know where it is. We know where to pick
We
it up.
need to, because even before this spring ends, because we need to have this build file
Yeah,
and putting my computer and other 4 people's computer, because we'll be doing more the extension of
Usability
the
testing.
usability test.
Yeah, we want to get some more usability tests done this next month.
So as soon as the group understands, like, oh, we reached that level, we know that we did everything from last week. Now, I think, did you say Lucas was testing with her?
Yeah,
so-
now it's testing it on Mac, Luke's testing on PC, but please do like be in dialogue with each other so that you,
So
like, if
then,
you spot an issue, you communicate it so you can be sure to check it as well, and vice versa.
and then in that last check-in in plastic, you write in the comment, right? Ready for build, for final build, and then I'll be able to know that I can build it in
All right.
PC for
And
the.
then what's the plan B if it's like, oh crap, like let's pretend that Brandon could fix the crash issue. And so what documentation do we want to have for like, we couldn't get this done.
I think they should continue using the sprint report because there is that area about the challenges or issues that arise. And then you can document, like, we have been trying to fix that issue, but we couldn't, so it's not going to be reasonable to do it timely. We are registering this for the next opportunity.
Speaking of which, didn't y'all say that you're going to do set up a sprint report for this is the first one of the fall? And then we could just put that item right on there? Or was that
That was in another.
IVR2? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, but we aren't otherwise expecting a sprint report for this spring, right? Like.
There's one more.
Oh, there is one more. Okay, yeah.
Sprint report 12.
Put it on the tab.
13?
Today is 12.
2 minutes.
No, I think today the last, the one we submitted this week is the last.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
one more. Like this is, the one that's due Friday is last.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what he said. Okay, all right. So sprint 13, likely 13.
Zoom land, any comment, final comments?
Hey, Tom,
I owe you money. 1 second. I gotta mention something about it.
All right,
I've got two things I need.
Just happens to
Go ahead.
the
First is, since we're keeping all the presentations on a calendar, what is the room number of the VR lab where you're now in, where the presentation's taking place?
B013.
My high school nickname, so
All right.
it's actually named in my
013?
math, so it shows
Yes.
up in
And
the
it's
command line
UC
sometimes.
Well, yeah,
Shoot.
because at the top of the Unity
See?
thing, it has.
Shoot, it's this building here, the VR. And then
Yeah,
you
it happened
say
one time.
UC
I should change it. It
shoot
happened one time during my
Room,
internship at
B-
Microsoft, and it was.
B as
it
in
was-
ball, 0,
right.
13.
Just wanted to flag that for you to do with
Okay.
the information, whatever you will.
And the next item is that we'll be looking for input from the sponsors as well. Do each of you want a little copy of that form, or do you want one person to be the key contact, such as Professor Bodson?
One person.
But let Tom be the main person, because he's been running the meetings this semester.
He's the hot show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, but Professor Rusak, remember we have two groups, so one needs to be for this group. And the other, or are we gonna do one for all the two groups we have?
Not to do a separate one for IVR four.
Yeah, so let's do one for this group with Dr. Hammond and one for IVR4 with Dr. Penn.
Dr. Pan.
It accounts for our grades.
Mhm.
And Dr.
You
Bodson and I will
convince that
be
your grades matter.
helping.
If you can convince it,
With the
we
comments
can
and
convince, you
feedback.
know?
Yeah, from what I see.
I think your
it's
friends
A's,
should-
man. No, dynamite.
Okay.
Ulysses.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, of course. I'm just.
Anything else?
I just the last thing. for
No,
y'all.
those are the two
The
keys,
key thing
so
is
that should do it.
For the
All right.
semester break, and we'll talk at the next meeting. We just want to make sure that there's a plan so that there is this final build, with everything. working.
What's-
That's gonna be really important.
What's the next meeting?
Well, that presentation.
Yeah, so we'll see you on
So we'll see a
Thursday.
presentation, we'll touch base, because you have one more sprint report, make sure we get a copy of that sprint report, and we'll just touch base about confirming the plan so that your final build, get everything together before everybody disappears, because once you disperse, like next to possible, she's gonna be in China, it'll be hard, so. It's fair. Different time zone.
And whenever,
Day,
all of you,
yeah.
if you are on vacation or be there, it's
Yeah.
the vacation, like you gotta turn off, right? So. not
Keep your
be
calendar,
happy,
and I wanna
We enjoy it a lot.
a couple budgets for you head out.
Can we?
Yeah.
All right.
We're good.
Bye.
We're done.
Bye,
Bye.
thanks.
Okay, then, take care, everyone.
Sounds good.
Yeah.